Harrison Sterling didn't look like a billionaire the night he walked into the Obsidian. He looked like a man who had run out of air. He arrived early, 15 minutes of silence, before the world could demand anything from him. He sat alone at table 4, placed his phone face down, and ordered only water. No wine, no appetizers. Just water. People rarely noticed exhaustion in a stranger, but tonight it clung to him like a shadow. A week of arguing with the board about AI ethics had carved something heavy across his shoulders. Sleepless nights, unanswerable questions, and the sinking feeling that the company he built was losing its soul faster than he could save it. He slipped off his Patek Philippe, a timepiece worth more than a year of the restaurant's rent, and tucked it into his coat. His bare wrist felt defenseless. He didn't want symbols tonight. He didn't want armor. He wanted to breathe. That was when she appeared. She carried nothing dramatic, only a tray, a warm towel, and the kind of attention people usually reserve for someone they already love. "Good evening," she said, placing the towel beside his glass. "You look like you're carrying the whole world on your shoulders. Let me carry the water for you." Her voice wasn't pitying. It wasn't curious. Just kind, simple, and startling. Harrison looked up. She didn't see the wealth. She didn't see titles, pressure, or the silent battle happening behind his eyes. She only saw someone tired. Someone human. Rory Harper. He didn't know her name yet, but he felt something shift inside him, like a door quietly unlocking in a dark hallway. She set a small dessert on the table. "This one's on me," she said lightly. No reason. Not long after, another woman approached, this one with heels that announced her arrival and a dress that shimmered like currency. "Blaine." "Harrison," she said. He stood out of habit. "You must be Blaine." She slid into her seat without waiting for him to pull out the chair. "So," she said briskly, "let's get to it. Not get to know you. Just get to it." "What do you do?" she asked. "I run a tech company." "Which one?" "TaskFlow." For the first time, her expression softened. Genuine surprise. "You're the TaskFlow guy?" "Yes." "Wow. So tell me, what's your 5-year plan? Expansion? Infrastructure contracts? AI logistics? Everyone's watching you. What's your angle?" He swallowed. Tonight he had promised himself one thing: honesty. "I'm thinking about scaling down," he said quietly. "Scaling what down?" "My life." Her face twisted with confusion. Then disapproval. "I didn't come here to date someone looking to run from ambition," she snapped, shutting her menu. "If I wanted a fisherman retirement fantasy, I would have swiped left." He said nothing, not because he lacked words, but because none of the ones inside him were meant for someone like her. "You and I are not aligned," Blaine declared, rising to her feet. "I'm chasing something worth building. You're chasing silence." She turned and left the room like a woman convinced she'd made the smartest exit of the night. Rory saw the moment from across the floor. Her eyes softened for just a breath before she moved on with her tray. Harrison sat again, the weight of being misread pressing into his ribs. Blaine wasn't wrong about the silence, but she didn't understand the noise he was trying to escape. A shadow fell over his table. The manager. "Sir," he said, "we do have a waitlist tonight, and our policy requires ordering a main course to keep premium tables." The polite way of telling him to leave. Before Harrison could respond, Rory stepped forward. "He's still deciding," she said gently but firmly. "And he's a guest." The manager's jaw tightened, but he nodded and walked away. Rory poured coffee into the empty cup before him. "People come here for all kinds of reasons," she said. "Some celebrate, some grieve. You don't have to explain why you're here." "Do you believe what she said?" he asked. "About what?" "That I'm running from ambition." Rory leaned on the empty chair, grounding her presence at his level. "Harrison," she said softly, "don't ever confuse your net worth with your worth as a human being." He looked up, and she continued. "Some people are so poor that the only thing they have is money. They see price tags, not people. Blaine didn't leave because you lacked something. She left because she can't recognize value unless it's wrapped in noise." Silence opened between them, not heavy, but clean, like a window cracked in a suffocating room. For what it's worth, she added, sitting here with nothing but a glass of water and your own honesty, that takes more courage than people give credit for. For the first time all night, he felt seen. 2 nights later, Harrison found himself walking back into the Obsidian without planning to. Not for the date. Not for the humiliation. But for a sentence. Don't confuse your net worth with your worth as a human being. He arrived quietly. Rory spotted him and smiled. You're early this time, she teased. I figured your water might need time to settle. He laughed softly. Awkward but real. She asked how his week was. He answered honestly.
Loud. Chaotic. Confusing.
Reevaluating is brave, she said. Especially when everyone around you fears your answer. Something in him loosened. When she returned with dessert he hadn't ordered, she shrugged. You look like someone who forgets to eat when he's thinking. He laughed. How long have you worked here? He asked. 3 years. And something in the moment settled like a truth too delicate to touch. He came again. And again. Each time unplanned. Each time more necessary. Then one night, he arrived just as the dinner rush began. Rory was tying her apron when her phone buzzed. She froze. Leo, she whispered. Her brother. Her hands shook as she answered. Another seizure? Is he breathing? I'm coming. She rushed toward the door, but the manager blocked her. Rory, your shift started 20 minutes ago. My brother is in the ER, she said, breathless. I have to go. If you walk out, you lose the shift. And after last week's attendance note, HR will terminate. Terminate, she repeated, stunned. For going to the hospital? It's automated, he said stiffly. The system flags every absence. Harrison stiffened. He knew that system.
His system.
TaskFlow's automated HR suite. And the woman who had shown him kindness when he had nothing to offer was being punished by the machine he built. The system was designed to track efficiency, attendance, labor consistency. But in that moment, as Rory stood trembling before him, something inside her buckled. Please, just tonight, her voice shook. I'll work doubles all week, please. It's out of my hands, Daniel replied. The app already logged you as a no-show. If you walk out that door, it confirms it. Rory pressed a shaking hand over her mouth. Not out of sadness, out of the cruelty of timing. I can't lose this job, she whispered. Then stay, he said simply. A single tear slipped down her cheek. But if I stay, I could lose him. Around them, the dining room kept moving without pause. Laughter over wine, the chime of cutlery, a birthday candle flickering happily in the corner. And in the middle of that polished, indifferent rhythm stood a woman silently breaking. Harrison stepped forward. Daniel, he said steadily. Let her go. This is a staffing matter, Daniel snapped. She's abandoning her shift. She's responding to an emergency, Harrison insisted. And you are? Someone telling you she deserves compassion. Rory wiped her cheek. It's okay. I can defend myself. No, Harrison said more gently. You shouldn't have to. Daniel, please don't do this, Rory begged. It's not personal, he replied coldly. It's policy. And then he pressed confirm. The tiny click sounded louder than a slammed door. Rory staggered back as if she'd been physically struck. Her apron slipped from her fingers and fell to the floor. I'm fired, she whispered. Daniel didn't look up. The system logged it. You can collect your last check on Friday. Her shoulders shook as she covered her face. Harrison felt something inside him burn. He had seen markets crash, numbers implode, algorithms fail, but he had never watched one of his own creations crush a human being right in front of him. He stepped closer. You made the wrong decision. Unless you're planning to order something, Daniel scoffed. We're done here. Rory stumbled toward the exit, fighting to hold herself together.
Quick steps.
Choked breaths. Arms tightly wrapped around her own shaking body. Harrison followed her outside. Rory, wait, he called, stopping inches from her arm. I don't have time, she cried. I have to get to the hospital. I'll drive you. You don't even know me. I know enough, he said. I know you shouldn't be going through this alone.
She didn't argue.
She simply nodded, small, exhausted, trusting him in the way people trust anyone who shows up in their darkest moment. As he opened the car door for her, Harrison caught his reflection in the restaurant glass, a man who built a system that had just fired the woman who helped him breathe again. And something inside him broke in a way he knew he would never ignore. 3 days later, Rory didn't return to the Obsidian for 3 days. Her world had collapsed into hospital hallways and the steady beep-beep of machines surrounding her brother's fragile body. Leo was stable but weak. Through it all, Harrison stayed.
Quiet. Steady.
Never overstepping. He drove her. He sat with her. He waited outside exam rooms. He bought meals she barely touched. He didn't try to fix the pain. He simply refused to let her face it alone. When Leo finally opened his eyes and whispered her name, she broke into relieved tears. But real life didn't pause. Bills waited. Rent waited. And the fact she'd been fired waited. On the 4th evening, with Leo finally stable, Rory returned to the restaurant to pick up her final paycheck. Harrison offered to go inside with her. She shook her head. "It's my mess," she whispered. "You've already done too much." He waited in the car, watching her through the glass like a man bracing for a storm he couldn't stop. Inside, the restaurant carried on as usual. No one noticed her as she walked in, looking smaller, worn down by sleepless nights and fear. Daniel finally appeared with her check. While waiting, she picked up a dropped napkin out of habit, a worker's instinct she no longer needed. Then the restaurant door swung open. Not violently, purposefully. 5 people in tailored suits stepped inside, cutting the air like cold wind. "We're here for Mr. Sterling," one woman said. "He was supposed to sign the merger documents an hour ago." Rory froze. "Sterling?"
No.
It couldn't be. Daniel turned, suddenly nervous. "Mr. Sterling? Here." The lead attorney checked her tablet. "His location tracker puts him at this address. He's been here several times this week." Whispers rippled through the restaurant. The Obsidian wasn't used to unexpected visits from legal teams hunting for billionaires. At that moment, the glass door opened again. Harrison walked in. Every suit straightened instantly. Daniel's face drained of color. Rory went still. Harrison's jaw set as he stepped toward Daniel. "What did you find out?" Rory asked softly. "That kindness sees deeper than wealth ever will," Harrison answered, eyes on her. He turned back to Daniel, voice sharper. "Everything that happened to her, the firing, the penalties, the algorithm hurting people, it came from something I built. And I'm done pretending I don't see the damage." Rory's eyes filled. Harrison stepped closer. "You shouldn't carry this alone," he said. "Not anymore." The room held its breath. Servers.
Guests.
Lawyers. Even Daniel, whose fate now stood on shaking ground. The truth at table 4. Harrison placed a leather folder on table 4, the same table he'd once sat at as just another tired man. "The board wants me to sign this merger," he said. "But I'm not signing." The attorney stiffened. "Sir, this will delay the deal." "Good," Harrison said. "Maybe it's time something actually shook." He faced Rory. "I built task flow to help people. But somewhere along the way, numbers got louder than humans. I ignored it. And that's worse." Emotion tightened her throat. He continued, "The night you told me what task flow did to you, I had all these reports about optimization and acceptable variance. But none of those numbers showed your face. Or Leo's. And that made me sick." Another folder slid into his hand. "This," he said, turning it to her, "is the Aurora Project, a complete rebuild of task flow from the inside." She stared at the cover. "What is it?" "A commitment to fair scheduling, transparent pay, real human appeals, removing automated penalties, and putting workers, real workers, in policy decisions." Her voice trembled. "Why me?" "Because you told me the truth when no one else would. Because you cared about the human being, not the CEO. And because in the middle of your own struggle, you showed me kindness without knowing who I was." Rory's fingers trembled around the folder. "I don't know if I can do this." "I know you can," he said softly. "And I'll walk every step with you." 6 months later. The world hadn't changed overnight, But some things were undeniably different. Task Flow now issued pay reports in plain language. Penalties were replaced with real human review. Workers sat on advisory panels for the first time ever. And at the center of every reform was one name, Rory Harper, Aurora project consultant. She entered rooms quietly, but changed everything inside them. Beside her, sometimes in the same room, sometimes guiding from afar, was Harrison Sterling. No longer hiding behind power. No longer carrying the world alone. The Charity Gallery, Shape of Work. Tonight, the two walked through an art gallery in Chicago. The exhibition displayed powerful portraits of gig workers and servers, people whose hands told the real story of labor. Rory wore a simple black dress. Harrison carried himself lighter than ever before. Then a familiar voice cut through the air. Harrison. It was Blaine. She approached with her polished smile, but faltered when she saw Rory beside him. I've been following your reforms, Blaine said, touching his arm. I'm impressed. Rory stepped back slightly, letting him choose who he wanted to be. Harrison looked at Blaine calmly. There was a time I thought validation came from people chasing the same ladder I was. But I'm not climbing anymore. Blaine blinked. When you walked out of the restaurant that night, I thought it was because you saw something lacking. But you couldn't see past the surface. He stepped aside, revealing Rory fully. This, Harrison said, is Rory Harper, the person who helped me rebuild a company and myself. Blaine's mouth parted, then shut again. Harrison turned completely toward Rory. You didn't have to say that, she whispered. I did. Because it's true. A curator adjusted the lights over a large photograph, a courier with a backpack. Under it, work should not break the people who carry it. Rory Harper. Her eyes widened. I didn't know they'd use my words. It stayed with me, Harrison murmured. The world around them blurred into soft noise. When we met, she said quietly, I thought you were trying to disappear. I was, he smiled. Now I want to build something worth staying for. He offered his hand. Not demanding. Not dramatic. Just open. She intertwined her fingers with his. They walked toward the exit beneath a billboard mock-up of Task Flow's new promise. Human first. Outside, Chicago stretched ahead. Cool night air, soft lights, a city learning how to be kinder. Rory leaned into him. He steadied her gently. For the first time in a long time, they walked toward a future built not on exhaustion, but on choice, truth, and enough.